Greg, are there any updates or comments you want to make before we begin?
No, just check your emails. A bit of stuff has gone out over the weekend and again this morning. Look forward to seeing you all in the class again on Thursday night. And
Brilliant.
tomorrow and Wednesday, you've got the quiz. So you'll be having so much fun out there.
We are.
Spoken like a man who's semi-retired. Thank you for the encouragement. All right. So have we just got Juliet and no, we've got some other people at the moment. Okay, so we've got Keith, Juliet, and Harry, and then obviously Chris and Greg and myself. Pardon?
That was Siri deciding she could help answer your question.
Oh, thank you, Siri. I much appreciated. Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, Harry and Keith and Juliet, before we start, do you have questions or things in particular that you want to go over that make lots of sense, make no sense at all? This is a tutorial. It's not going to be new content like we've already said. It's going to be consolidating content and having a chance to chew the fat about parts of language.
I'm still, I think, what do you keep saying, Greg? The forest for the trees. I'm just sort of letting it all wash over me, and it'll eventually stick while still trying to pin down the alphabets and things.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay. Having left my mic on, I'm about to turn it off, but mostly because one of the comments from Helen after last week's shoot was that there was a whole lot of background noise. Most likely it was somebody that had something else happening in their house, like a TV or radio or whatever, and it was coming through on the recording. I haven't gone back to check. I've just taken that feedback on board, but that's a reminder to me to turn off my mic, except when I'm needing to speak, and others might want to do that as well. It also stops Siri interrupting your consultations. So let me just say, as I exit, as it were, in the message I sent out this morning, I copied a slide from Thursday where I've tried to say, these are the things you really need to know, and these are the things you need to know about, but you don't really need to know them. Okay, and that might help. That might help the focus, so you can actually see the forest and not worry too much about 1,001 trees.
Yes, I did appreciate that. Thanks, Greg.
At this point,
Can I mute you then? Okay. So Juliet, you're still processing. Keith, Harry, what about you two gents? How are we feeling?
Very much the same as Juliet. There's nothing specific that is confusing me. I am generally up to speed with everything, and yeah, no questions.
Okay. All right. Keith?
I just need to keep practicing. It was the same when I did Greek 18 months ago. It just takes longer for me to process, I suppose.
Yeah, and possibly, given that you've already done Greek, you may feel like there's that disparity of, the Greek's consolidating faster than the Hebrew is.
Yeah, I said that to Chris. It's definitely the case. Like, I'm speaking Greek easier as well, like out of things. Whereas with Hebrew, I'm like,
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's really good. It sounds like you are all at the place where you need to be. And I know it's confusing at the moment, but it will get there. Okay. What I'm going to do today, and feel free to stop me at any point, is just to go back over and practice, revise. And then I want to introduce you to an audio tool, which will actually, it's recordings of the Old Testament, of the Hebrew Bible out loud. Which is a nice way to just listen to it and to start to appreciate the cadence of the language. Because even if you don't understand it all, I think it helps with the familiarization to hear it. So it's good to listen to, and you can download them and put them on your iPod or iPad or whatever, and I have had Jeremiah 18 and various Old Testament texts come up in my like shuffle on my Apple Music at points. And my children are like, oh, hello, what is this? It's either that or it's like Wiggles. So that's where I'm at in my life. Okay, so I'm going to share. I need to actually pull this up. So I have got share sound. I'm just going to share we'll look at the presentation, and this is, oh, go away. Sorry. I will show you this. Okay, so just looking at that slideshow of the Hebrew alphabet. So let's see if we can get that up. Okay, so who would like to have a go at reading the top line? So we're just doing our practice from right to left, these first 4 consonants or first 4 characters.
I'll have a go.
Go for it, Juliet.
Aleph, Bet, Gimmet.
Gimel.
Gimel.
Yep.
Sorry. Dalet.
Well done. It is Dalet. Okay.
And I'm running out of now. This is where I stop.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So let's go. We've got Aleph. Beit. Yep, Harry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Bait.
Yep. Bait. Yeah, it's a B sound. B. Okay. Now, remember, this is one of our. Ooh, don't do that. Don't do that, Zoe. This is one of our. Oh my goodness. Consonants which has a hard and a soft sound. So I'm going, oh my goodness. Greg, what have you done in this PowerPoint? I stole it from you. Okay. So bait, which is the second character, can be bait or vate, like it can have a soft sound. Okay. Now, when it's got the dagesh in the middle, the doubling, that's the hardening of it. Okay. So it's the b then. So Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet. Who'd like to have a go at the second row?
Hey, Vav. Is it Zayn?
Zion. Yep.
Zion, Chet.
Yep. More like it's not a chet, it's like a hate. Yeah. Okay. So one famous word that starts with the ch is chesed. Okay. So you don't say chesed, you say chesed. If you were to write this character here as a transliteration in English, it would be a CH, but it's a h. It's quite a rough sound. Okay. And particularly if you speak other languages, it can get confusing. It's like in Italian, is it k or is it, what is it? It's got a different structure to it. Okay. So hate, vav, zayin, and hate. Okay, beautiful. Next line. So we'll go to our third line. Harry, can you have a go?
I'm not sure. I'm not good with the names. The sound is the.
Yep.
And then the or the sort of. Is it Yoja? So no, there's no sorry, not it's
yeah, it's yod.
Yod,
so
yeah,
it's
sorry,
a y sound. So the first one is Tate, which is the t sound, one of your t sounds. And then this one here is Yod, which you would transliterate like a Y.
Y.
Okay.
The
K. Yep, well done. It's a cuff.
Okay.
Cuff. Now this one can have a doubling.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you get the really hard k sound. Otherwise, it's like a huff.
Huh.
Yeah.
And then the
And
L
L.
sort of sound.
yeah, lamed. What I
Lamed.
would write. Yeah. Write that
Thank
as an
you.
L. Okay, well done. All right, Juliet, are you ready? Can you give me the next 3? I won't make you do the whole line. Oh, you're on mute.
Mem,
Mhm.
nun. Is it nun?
Yep.
Or nun?
Noon. Yep.
Noon. And I'm cheating. I've got it up on the wall here.
That's
So I
okay.
It's a semic.
Samic. Yeah. So it's a sound. Well done. Okay, so samic. So mem, noon, samic. It's which is the sound. Okay.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question
sure.
too? You know the ones that have got the final nun, and I think there's 3 other ones that have got that.
Yes.
A final mem. I probably have heard this a few times, but what is that used for when they use the final?
The final form is when that consonant or that character goes at the end of the word.
Right.
So it's not if it's the final M sound, it's if it's the final sound on a word.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's
So
only for those particular.
yes, correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay. So mem, noon, samic. Keith, could you try the next 3 for me, please, from this one?
I say ain.
Iron. I'd say
Iron.
iron.
Oh, I say iron. Hey. Sade.
Well done. Okay, so iron, pay. Now,
So-
pay is another one
As a double.
of our beged kafat letters, which can be pay or fay, like pie or fish. And then sade, which is down here, which is like your TS. I'd say TS. All right, Harry, can you have a go? Can you try and do the last 4 for me, please?
Again, sorry, I'm not good with the names, but the k.
No,
sort
that's
of-
okay. K.
The
Yep.
k.
Yeah. Cough. Yep.
The
Cough,
r,
yep.
the r sort of sound.
Mhm.
The sh sort of sound. No. Yes. The
Now it can have 2. Remember,
yes.
depending on whether it's on this side or on this side, there will be a dot above.
Yes. Yep. Right.
Yep.
Yep.
And the last one.
The t or the th sound.
Yes. Well done, tav. Well
Tav.
done. Which is what you will often find at the end of a feminine plural word.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, because you'll have oat. Often this is one of your clues that it might be if it's the end of a shoresh, a triconsonantal root. If it's added on there, it's an indication or a clue that it could be a feminine plural word. Okay.
Just with the
Right.
shin sound, you know
Yep.
how you put the 2 dots up there? That's is that, would you call that a doubling?
No. The doubling goes in here. It goes within. Okay.
Oh, right.
So this character, sin or shin, one is thin if it's the dot is on, I think, is it on the right, Greg? I'm trying to remember. I get confused now. I'm having a moment.
Let me unmute myself. So that
Thank you.
the way I remember is Hashemayim, and the dots on the right hand side. Whereas
Yes.
field, Asar, the dots on the left hand side.
On the left, yeah. And it's counterintuitive because Hebrew goes from right to left, but the sin dot is on the left and the shin dot is on the right. Because if you think about your order of your letters, you'd say sin and then shin. Well, I learnt it sin, shin.
Yeah.
And your
Is it-
dot is actually left and then right.
There's an interesting biblical and cultural point. Obviously, the sound s and sh are not very far apart. And in one of the differences between modern Hebrew and Arabic is typically where Hebrew has an S, Arabic will have a sh, and where Arabic has a sh, Hebrew will have an S. Now, the biblical background there is what's called the Shibboleth controversy in, I'm guessing, 2 Samuel, where there's conflict between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And as they're coming across the river, they get them to say which town they came from or to say a particular password. And the northerners would say, I can't remember which way, but let's suppose the people in Judah would say sh in that word, and the people in Samaria would say sa. It's like Canberra and Canberra kind of thing. And that's how they worked out who was really a spy and who was on their side. So these are very similar sounds. They're regional dialects that have been frozen in time. And I guess ever since the Masoretes, they've said, you'll say it this way. But up until then, it was probably still fluid. The other cultural point is with the letter tau or tor, often called a TAW because of bad transliteration, I guess. The Franciscan cross, which looks like a capital T in Western characters, derives from the Paleo-Hebrew form of tau, which was a little T sign. And in Ezekiel, I don't know, chapter 14 or something, Ezekiel is told to go around and put this sign, which was the letter tau for Torah, on the foreheads of the holy people, and the rest were going to be burned up by God. But the sign, so the tau cross comes from Torah, but in the Paleo-Hebrew script. So there's a little bit of historical info for Franciscans or St. Francis College students. The tau cross has its roots in an even earlier form of the Hebrew alphabet. And it's the sign of tau for Torah, not the sign of the cross, although it has been reinterpreted as a sign of the cross. Shutting up now. Back in my case.
Thank you. Okay, is that helpful? Yep, great. All right, I'm going to quiz you and I'm going to ask you, can you identify for me the characters of the consonants which have a different ending in their final form? Don't do that, Zoe. Well, that just gave it away. That's no use at all. Ta-da! Okay. So that doesn't help anyone at all, does it? I don't know why it did that. All right. So here we have the cuff and the final cuff. Okay. Mem and then the final mem. Noon and noon. It's worth noting, it's been asked before, the difference, this noon here to say the vav, is that the noon has a tail which would go below the center line. So a normal vav is there. So I would write vav like that, and I would write noon like that. Okay. And then Sade has your pay, got here, and then Sade. Okay. Now your kaf, because it's one of the Begid Kafat letters, can still have a hardening even in the final form. And so on. Any questions? That's all right. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see if this is going to behave for me. All right. And we've got our vowels, so A, E, I, O, U. And we've got long, short, and reduced. So I'd encourage you to think about it in terms of, we don't need to know the pronunciation, but if I were to, in my A column, I've got the kamets and the patak, and then the hatef patak, the reduced. That's like that really hurried, that ha, ah. Okay, and then it obviously elongates out with all of those. Is there any of those you want to look at? Well, they're okay. No? Okay, cool. All right, we've seen this sentence before. Who remembers what it is?
Genesis 1.
Genesis 1:1. Well done. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. So we have done this, but I would like to do it quickly again. Can you identify for me in any clues or any indications, any examples of the definite article? We've got 7 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I think the second line at the beginning, there's that one there.
The second line at the beginning or the first, which?
So
Here?
that one, yeah.
No, this here is a vav. Nicely, no, but it is something. Oh, stupid thing. Let's just go back. Why is it doing that? Let's go on to my drawing instead. Okay. That is a vav, which when it's attached to a word generally indicates an and, a continuation of an idea or linking of multiple parts in a sentence. But it is something very common you will see. Can you find the definite article? There's 2 examples of it in this sentence.
Sorry, I probably need to be refreshed on the definite article to be able to find it.
No worries.
If I was to guess,
Mm-hmm.
a definite article, could it be like with Elohim?
No. So Elohim, that will, there's no definite article on there, but the definite article in Hebrew, remember there's only one of them.
Her.
Yes. Well done.
Well, we were running out of options. So.
We were running out of options. We were running out of options. That's the first one. And remember in Hebrew, there's only one. So where's the second one?
Second verse, the word to the left there.
Yep. Second line, the next word, ha. Okay. So the definite article in Hebrew, there's only one of it. It's ha. The reason there's the patak here versus the kametz here is simply because this first one, is linked to a consonant. So it's got a sh and it's got the doubling. Whereas in the second example, it is linked to a guttural. Okay. And you can't put a doubling in a guttural. Okay. Keith is doing a little woo. Okay. So that is what indicates it's what's the word? I'm trying to think of the technical word. It's just the intonation, it's the pronunciation really, and linguistically, because this number 1 matches with the consonant. You put the ha with the patak, and then you double that first consonant. If you try and do it to this second word here down the bottom, you put on the ha, but you can't double this one here because it's a guttural. So you have to lengthen this instead. You have to extend that sound instead. That's really the only difference that occurs. Okay, and the definite article always goes at the start of the word. It doesn't go at the end, it doesn't go in the middle. So again, it's another clue. Now there are words that start with the consonant hey, but it is a clue that goes, this word is maybe saying the heavens and the earth or the earth. All right. What else can you recognize in here, Juliet? I think you said it before. There's a word that you do recognize.
Elohim. Sorry, I think I had
Elohim.
Yep.
You're right. Okay.
turning my microphone off. I had it open, so I apologize.
That's okay. Elohim. Okay. So what do we notice about this word? What do you think it tells us by particularly what's at the end of the word?
Feminine. It's no,
Good.
sorry, it's not. It's a final mem.
Yep, it's a final mem, but I'm actually looking specifically
At the yod.
at this little. Well, it's the im at the end. Okay, so it has been added on to L, and the im we're looking at tells us that it is. Do you think if it's going to be singular or plural?
Singular?
Needs to be singular, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
No. Oh, okay.
No. It's actually plural, and it's masculine because it's im. Because remember, most feminine plural words are oat.
So that on our word list is gods,
Yeah.
but we say it Elohim.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Because there are multiple words. Now, this is a really important point to note out, is Elohim can be used to notate the God of the Hebrews, Elohim Adonai, but it can also be used as gods in general. So you need to look at the context when it comes to translation. And I'm pretty sure if Greg's got up here, okay, so I'm just going to clear that there. Got the mouse. Okay, so did you have it up?
What you've got there is the interlinear, and it's got
Yeah, the
God with a
interlinear.
capital G. In the vocab list, if you look closely, it's God with a small g followed
Yeah.
by S in brackets. Because we
Yeah.
would, in the Bible, it normally, well, in this kind of a context, it means God, big G,
Yeah.
God, in our language. But if you're talking about the God of the Philistines, you'd still use Elohim, Elohe, because it'd be a construct. But I mean, you'd still use the word Elohim, but just meaning the gods.
Yeah.
And so this is what we call a plural of majesty. I'm not sure the ancient Hebrews actually had that category, but we know it from when the king says, we wish such and such to happen, because in the English culture, probably an affectation adopted from the French, I'm not sure. When the sovereign speaks in the first person plural, not in the first person singular. Okay, so in Genesis, Elohim, there's no other gods in the story at this stage. Genesis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. There's only one God, but it's often written as Elohim. And it's strictly speaking, it's gods, but there is only one God for the person responsible for the final shape of the Pentateuch.
Yeah. And if you jump down here to, if you can see where my cursor is, I'm on Genesis 1:3. Vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or. And said God, let there be light, and there was light. Now, if you look at the details underneath here, this is the yomer, which comes from the shoresh, the root amar, to say. And that is actually he said. So he as in third person masculine singular. The noun that follows it is plural, which doesn't make sense, except for the fact it's the assumption that, as Greg's saying, in this context, there's one person doing the speaking, but the noun is the royal we as such.
And the same with bara in the first line.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, bara. But it's worth noting that when you learn the word Elohim, if you're going through Old Testament, if you see it, you need to check that it's referring to the God of the Hebrews, the Yahweh, or not, as Greg said, like the God of the Philistines, because it is a piece of vocab that can be used in other places. I think I might pull up my Hosea and show you. Okay.
So when does God get referred to as Yahweh? When does that start? Just offhand?
Greg, wise one.
In the Old Testament, in Genesis chapter 2, round about verse 4b, but it's Yahweh Elohim, interestingly, the Lord God, Yahweh Elohim. And at chapter 4, verse 16 or thereabouts, it says that this particular person, was it Enoch? I can't remember, that in that time, men, sorry for the old language, I learned the Bible in King James, men began to call upon Yahweh for the first time in Genesis chapter 4. But if you get to Exodus chapter 3, God tells Moses, listen up, matey, no one's ever heard this secret name before, but I'm going to tell it to you, and you're going to tell it to the Hebrew slaves. So the Bible disagrees as to where the name Yahweh came from and when it first started to be used. Aren't you glad to know that? Silence.
Okay.
I am.
Any questions? Okay. All right. I'm sorry, I've just pulled some things from Greg's PowerPoint. So a reminder that when I talk about shoresh, it's the root, the triconsonantal root, where we have, for example, here, shaphat. So we have shofate down the middle. Don't do that, Zoe.
Don't you love trying to use share screen with Zoom?
Yeah. Shofate is judge.
Yeah, what's showing on our screen is still Genesis.
Oh, really?
Yes. You've
okay.
got to stop screen share and then start
New
screen share. Yeah, this is what drives me nuts on Thursday nights.
No, okay, that's not what I want.
I thought
New
not.
share. Hello, don't do that. It won't let me select it.
You're making me feel much better. If that.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to stop this share. Okay. Let's try that again, Zoe. This is sending me insane.
We're not saying anything.
Shh. Okay. All right. Can you see the big presentation now?
Yes.
Yep. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Now I've got to find where's my annotation? It's going to let me annotate, is it? And I can't point. If I point at my own screen, you can't see it. Oh, annotate. There we go. Okay. Done. Red. Okay. Shofate, which is the judge. Okay. That's the noun which comes from shin, pei, tate. Over here we have on the left, shafat, he judges. And then on the right, we have the noun mishpat, which is justice. Okay. And again, this is where you start seeing these clues of what you can pick up, which we will keep referring back to those, trying to look for those clues. All right.
So I have a question.
This is going to behave. Go for it, Juliet.
The middle one, which was judge.
Yes.
The the shin sound, the shin letter. It's why has it's got 2 dots over it, but does one of those dots then belong to the next word?
No, it doesn't. That's an excellent question. It is, does anyone have a go of what this one is here?
A vowel, is that an O or?
Excellent, well done. So it's our pollen, okay? So it's actually slightly on the side, but it links to the shin. So that's why we got the sh-o, show, feet, okay? And here, because I've got the pay, but there's no doubling, I'm saying f rather than p. So I'm not saying shopate, I'm saying shofet and mishpat. That's right, isn't it, Greg? Or am I completely off the garden path?
No, that's absolutely correct. I'm now wondering about mishpat. I've always said mishpat, but technically mish is a closed syllable, so it probably should be mishpat.
I think it's mishpat because the sh is a closed syllable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the shava is silent, but it would force the hardening on the pay.
Yeah.
Whereas in here, it's the shafat and shofet. This little thing here is a tricky one. And when Greg talks about a closed syllable, here we have m-i-sh, mish, and then we open it again to p-at. I would actually say mishpat, but
Yeah,
I don't know
I
why.
agree.
I don't know why I would say that.
Well, the fact that there's no Dagesh Forte in the pay is just my lazy typing.
Okay, good, excellent.
I was concentrating on the 3 letters and how the roots turn into different thingies. I wasn't trying, for once in my life, I wasn't trying to be perfect. I wasn't even aware of being imperfect. But you can't see what I'm pointing at either. But yes, mish is a closed syllable, and the 2 dots, the shavar, close it off, mish, and then the f at t really has to be p at t because you're starting a whole new syllable and there's no vowel sound carrying over from the syllable before.
Yeah, but don't get too bogged down in that. Okay, all right. Let's have a quick look at mouse. I'm learning how to use this properly. So we remember that in Hebrew we have singular, plural, and dual, and we have masculine and feminine. And we've got our nouns, we've got our adjectives, we've got our articles, pronouns, participles, etc. Okay, so noun being the name of something, adjective, how do we describe it? Articles being like definite, the. Pronouns, when it replaces the noun, so he or she or they. And depending on whether it's used as object or subject, that could be him, he, her, she, your, you. Participles, which is what we would equate in English as ing, like going or finished, often with the ed. And we've got singular, dual, or plural. It's good to know these, and this is where accordance will help us. First, second, third. I, you, he or she. We, use, they. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that, Keith. Now, third person will still distinguish between they masculine and they feminine. Whereas in English, we have they, and there's no changing of it. Culturally speaking, it will always defer to, if it's masculine, it could include women. If it's feminine, it's generally specifically to female in the plural. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Elohim. This is what Greg had before. So we've got, it's a noun. It's common, plural, masculine, plural, absolute. So there's no construct to it. It could be gods or gods, a little g, or it could be God as the capital G. which depends on context. So in Genesis 1, for example, it'll come up as capital G, God. Clear as mud? Helpful?
Yes. I need to leave, sorry. Thank you very much,
Go
Zoe
for
and
it.
Greg. See you all on
Thank you,
Thursday.
Harry.
Just on the
Beautiful.
point of the plural Elohim form,
Mhm.
when we get
Yep.
to roundabout verse 26, thereabouts, when God is having a conversation with himself about let us make man in our image. Okay, it's there you've actually got plural, presumably in the verb, because I must admit I've never looked at it in the Hebrew. Isn't that bad? But let us make man in our image. And in the image of God, he created them. So you've got this back and forth between the plurality of Elohim, which Christian theologians see as a sign of the plurality of the Trinity, but that's really bad grammar, apart from theology. But so it's Elohim, which is a plural form, but sometimes God, it's as if, well, what's normally understood is God is talking to the angels, to the council of heaven, and says, okay, guys, now we're up to day 6. Let's make humans today. This will be fun. So let us make man. Is that God talking to himself, themselves, whatever, or is that God talking to the heavenly hosts in the heavenly council, which has the wonderful Hebrew word sod as its noun?
Okay. You're back, Harry.
No, I think he was just quitting out. That was just the thing to say left, I think.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was worried that I cut Greg off, but I'll head off now. Thank you.
Okay.
No worries. Thank you. Bye. Okay. So we'll go back through these quickly. Hebrew nouns. We've got masculine singular. Generally, there is no ending on them. Masculine plural. This is where we see with Elohim, im. Okay. Feminine singular. I'll find a little. We've got a few options, but most commonly it's the ah. So the kamets and the h at the end. Okay. So if I would have.
Sorry, this probably doesn't make any sense, or maybe it does. I don't know, but you know, like the feminine singular that you just went to there, and the last letter being hey. I don't know why, but the way I remember it is the same for the feminine Greek, because you've got the a sound and the hey. That's how I click with them too. If that even makes sense, I don't know if it does for Juliet, but because they sound similar, I'm like, oh, feminine. You know,
it's Michael, Michaela, Nick, Nicole, Nicola.
Yeah.
It's there's often the or an a kind of sound as we feminize or attribute a feminine characteristic to it. And there's a distinction too, and again, as English speakers, this doesn't mean that the object is necessarily female. It does in some instances. For example, Zeus, this word here, is masculine singular. If you put a kamets and then a hey on the end, Susa, that's a mare. Like that's a female horse. However, if it comes to eretz, which is a feminine word, does it specifically mean that the earth is feminine? Not necessarily. There's theological rabbit holes you can go down there. Sometimes it is to indicate that it's the feminine form of that object or subject, like a female cow or a female horse or a female, like a queen versus a king, but not always. You've got plural and then you've got dual. Now, interestingly, most of our dual forms are feminine, particularly when it comes to the naturally occurring dual forms, as in body parts. So it would be, yeah, I think that's right. I think that's what I read the other day. I remembered that. I could be wrong.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by that? So like an actual
Yep, sure. I'll just have a quick look. I had a reference point here. I'll go back to that. It's a Marie Louise thing. So paired body parts are feminine. So things like hand in the singular and ears and feet, they are actually feminine dual. So you can have two of something that's a masculine, but your naturally occurring duals, like your body parts, are actually feminine.
And the last three words in the dual column are feet, hands, and eyes.
So we've got raglayim, yadayim, and enayim. So it should actually have here yad. It's the I-im. Yeah. So you've got this third one here is feet, and it's raglayim. This one here is hands, yadayim, and eyes, enayim, which is different to the im or the ot, the ayim or anayim. Yeah, I am, sorry. Sound all right? Yeah. I'm just going over this. I'm going to move on in a second to another thing that I wanted to show you. All right, we've done the definite article, the hey, before. So we'll go through there. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that for a second. Juliet or Keith, any questions at the moment? No? Okay. I'd like to show you a resource which I find really useful. And I encourage you to open up your Google, your Chrome, your Safari, whatever it is that you've got going at the moment. And to type in Mechon, so M-E-C-H-O-N, and then Mamre. Okay, and this is where we have recordings of the Hebrew Bible. And you can find here. Now that's written, listen to this chapter. So we've got Genesis 1. You've got an interlinear side by side. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. And you should be able to click onto this.
Hamisha Humshe Torah.
Now, can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yep, cool. All right, so it's got a little introduction. So I'll pause it. And
Sefer Bereshit, Parashat Bereshit.
okay, so as you listen to this, pull up your Genesis 1:1 if you can, just so you can listen along. I'm going to put mine on the side.
Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz.
That was our first verse. And it's a nice way just to listen to it. Okay, so we're going to go into the second verse, into Genesis 1:2.
והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו, וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוהים מרחפת על פני המים.
Okay, so you'll see one thing that is worth noting, and Greg is different to the way I speak. Greg speaks differently in Hebrew to the way I do. And then as a native speaker, well, as these are coming from rabbis and leaders, so it will be different again, but it's a nice way to get those sounds, to listen to it, even if you're just listening to one verse over and over again, following and learning to read along. It's like a parent reading a book to us. That's how, one of the ways that we learn language. Okay. So let's go. Hopefully you've got, let's stop that for a second and share my whole screen. I can apparently share two things at once. Hopefully you can see both those things.
Wow. You're going to teach me that trick.
So when you go screen share, Greg, you
Yeah.
just press shift and you can select multiple screens.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Actually, I had seen that, but I didn't know what it was.
Okay. So we're just at Genesis 1:3, which we haven't, I've said quickly before, but listen to this.
ויאמר אלוהים יהי אור, ויהי אור.
Vayomer Elohim yehi or veyehi or. And said God, let there light, or let there be light, and it was light. It's a really nice way. Okay. I'm just going to do verses 4 and 5 just for enjoyment. I think to listen to.
וירא אלוהים את האור כי טוב, ויבדל אלוהים בין האור ובין החושך. ויקרא אלוהים לאור יום, ולחושך קר הלילה, ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר, יום אחד. ויאמר אלוהים.
And suddenly it gets ahead of you. You couldn't see half of my screen. Okay. So that's just a useful tool just to help saturate that language and that sound. Questions, worries, concerns at the moment?
How far should we? So, that'll be a great resource for me to do. So, should I just go up, just do one verse at a time up to like, what was it, verse 5, and just keep repeating? Because some of the words you're like, oh, you know, hopefully I'll look at them and go, that's what that says.
Absolutely.
That's what that
and it's a really
sounds
good
like.
way. But if you think about it, Keith, what we have done, we are week 4 and we have learnt a huge amount, but predominantly we've stayed within a few texts. And even today, even for me, I understand my Hebrew, I understand my language, but I don't read this stuff regularly. So going over verse 3 was okay because that's pretty straightforward, it's short. But verse 4 and verse 5, I probably would benefit myself from stopping and listening to that a couple of times. So yeah, that's what I mean. Soak it in and just do one verse at a time, because you'll suddenly it'll get away from you and you go, am I verse 6? Am I verse 7? What am I? Do verse 1 10 times or do verse 2 10 times and just process it, because I think that will help with your reading. Someone's reading it for you. It will also help with your recognition of the characters, the consonants, and also the recognition of the vocab. So it's just a good way. And there's so much of our vocab that's in those first couple of sentences, the first couple of verses. Yeah. And we can choose it from any of our verses. It's easier to find because the recordings are obviously Genesis chapter 1. So unless you know where to look to find verse 18, it's easier to start at the start. Yeah, cool.
I think,
how are we feeling?
I think we can also do that in accordance, but let me practice it before Thursday night.
Ooh.
There's a speech. Well, I mean, there's a under preferences settings. One of the options is speech, and so by default, I've got Karen. For my Greek, I have Melina. For my Hebrew, I have Karmit. And for my Arabic, I have Majid as different voices. So I've never actually played with it, but let me do that before Thursday night.
Okay, great. Excellent. I just thought that was a useful tool.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left. I wanted to show you something out of this is an accordance tool. And I have learned something which would have been really, really helpful. So let's go back to screen sharing. Actually, I'm just going to do my desktop so you can see all my crazy files and my children eating ice cream in Toowoomba in June. Would you imagine? T-shirt and shorts, those two. Okay, so Greg showed us the other day the word chart. And if we select, say, these first 3 verses, and I want to move that, and I want to find a word chart. And suddenly already here you have all of this. Now, I think, Greg, am I correct in thinking that you can select all of this and copy and paste it?
I think you can, but let me just do it in parallel to remind myself, because a couple of people had trouble doing this in the quiz the other day.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. I'm going to open up. Now, I am going to look at my layout. This is a good tool for exegesis for assignments. And this is my disclaimer. As I say, I'm a language teacher, and I've done my Hebrew study, and I've done tutoring before. But when I came to do my 10,000 word exegesis last semester on Hosea, I hadn't touched my Hebrew in 4 years. So I needed to go through, and I cheated with accordance. I did all my parsing and all my translation using accordance. So that hasn't
It does paste across, but unless I can format the columns better.
Yeah, the columns. We'll have a look at the formatting for these columns, because this is something that Marie-Louise, this is a tool that Marie-Louise showed me. And sorry, I'm just going to take you through all my folders because I'm crazy like this.
Just while we're talking about that, while you're looking for it, I tried multiple ways of copying and pasting across, but it never gives you the table regardless. I've tried because I was like, that's why I screenshotted it, but then that doesn't hold when you screenshot.
What if you put a table in first? No, doesn't do it. Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you're just trying to copy one line, you can copy the entire row. That will paste across good enough for a quiz, but it's not what we're trying to do. But and the other thing is with the Greek, maybe there's just a Hebrew thing. I'm pretty sure with the Greek, I have done this. I've pasted it, I've printed it off, stays in its columns. Maybe it doesn't know what to do with the Hebrew.
It did it with me with the Greek yesterday as well. I actually did Greek rather than Hebrew. It was doing something wrong.
Yeah, okay. All right. When you want to use your accordance and use your biblical tools to go, what on earth does this mean? Marie-Louise showed me, and I think lots of people do it. You can do your word for word translations without necessarily having to know every single word. Okay. So you can take these words from here in your word chart and basically you copy and paste them in here, and you've got your parsing. And from this is where I did. So my exegesis was to translate a whole chapter in Hebrew into a script. And so I went through verse by verse and I put in all my words. I did my parsing and I put my Strong's reference. What I didn't do is just write the English word. I actually then translated it myself. Okay. Now this one is insane because it is 26 pages long, because it is all Hosea 2. But when I translated Hosea 2 in a specific way, I was able to use this way of working to justify why I translated in a particular way. And I show you this because even with some simple language tools, we're going to be able to use this in terms of whether you're doing an exegesis or whether you're preaching. This is what one of our goals is, I think, isn't it, Greg?
Yep.
Yeah, is to be able to manipulate the Bible software so that we can translate texts ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I turned this into a script because I was doing performance criticism. And that's where all my notes are here, and things like I've got speakers because I've got characters. But the value in this was that Hosea 2, if you read it on the page, sounds like it's one person. But by having translated it, parsed it and translated it, I was actually able to see that there are lots of voices in the story. And I had a much better command of the text itself and what I think it's trying to, the story it's trying to tell in a way that's faithful, rather than just reading it and going, oh, obviously it's Hosea saying all of this stuff. Because if I look through my parsing, I've got third masculine, first person, I've got feminine, I've got plural, I've got a whole, actually there's a lot of voices in this. And this is where the Bible software helps us as students, as pastors, as scholars, understand a lot better the original text so that we can understand what it's saying to us. Anyway, that's just my little piece of tool there. Anyway, be encouraged. I reckon we could actually already start doing that.
Yeah.
Don't say. So
And
I think that's, yep. Sorry, Greg.
that word chart will print as a word chart. It's saving it, which is the problem. So, and you can say you can print a PDF or you can print a Word. Well, you can print. Not sure how you would save it as a Word file. And what I often do is turn the page setting to landscape, and then it doesn't take as many pages, and you can make the columns wider, so you've got more space to put notes in or whatever. But you can certainly save the whole chart, and you can also change the font size and stuff, because you've got font and style and size and color, whereas other things you've got whatever text you've got selected can be done in a different color or whatever. So it's just a case of playing around with it. We will do more and more of this as we go through the class, because yes, and this is, we kept saying this and you probably don't believe us, but it's just as hard for us to know, believe it or not, when to shut up and not keep trying to tell you stuff like now, as it is for you to learn it, because we're trying to juggle, how do we give you enough Greek and Hebrew so this is going to work for you without teaching you Greek and Hebrew, which is a whole other subject. So it's actually challenging for us at a different level, just as it's challenging for you and your own level. So the more we can work with the text, the more we can work with accordance, the better. But we've got to have a little bit of content before we can do that.
Well, I've been using just for my own self, practicing using the accordance just for the children's lessons that I'm writing, so I can get a bit more of the background information. Obviously, I'm not teaching them the Greek and the Hebrew, but it gives me some of the commentaries and things that with the texts have been really helpful. So I've appreciated it.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Actually, Juliet, my question would be to you, why aren't you teaching the kids Greek and Hebrew? The conversation that we started having at St. Paul's, why not? We have a kids' time, we've got Sunday school type thing. I said to them, why not every now and again introduce an interesting Hebrew word like shalom, something like that, where they can actually get out their paintbrushes or their texters or whatever it is, and actually have fun writing a Hebrew word, because it's a beautiful script. And just something interesting. And maybe you can do the same with Greek every now and then. It's not about teaching them the language, it's about teaching them a word or so. And it just creates a foundation for when they grow up and need to come and do this subject and Greek and Hebrew and I see no reason at all why we shouldn't introduce this stuff into